I was approached by some people that are forming a new group, Luke. And I said I wasn't going to get involved in this flag thing. Do you remember I said that?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to, after I said my piece, I wasn't going to get involved in this flag thing. But I was approached by a group last night called Ocala United. And it's a group of people that are on both sides of the issue, that think the flag is a heritage that should be protected, and also think the flag has no business at the county offices. People on both sides of the group, but guess what they've done? They've come together as one voice to try to reach a reasonable conclusion to this convoluted, asinine 3 or 4 weeks we've had with the flag issue. And it hadn't went away, Luke, even when you even as you thought it might go away while you were gone. Hadn't went away. So I was approached by this group last night, and I said, it makes perfect sense that we should get people on both sides of the aisle together to come up with a plan to fix this problem. Just like Buddy always said, Daniel Owen, who said he was going to run for county commission, announced he was going to run for county commission of Marion County on this show this week, or on Monday. Daniel Owen says, when you're faced with a problem, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do about it? And I always said, that I need to do something about this. And so I got together with this group because this group's got people from both sides of the aisle, and they've decided to do something about it. We're going to get together. We're going to formulate a plan. It's the people from the Pride Ride and people who are against the Pride Ride from all walks of life. And we're going to get together. We're going to formulate a plan, which we've already done, to present to the county commission as an alternative or an outcome that we think is suitable for everybody with this flag issue. Now, does that sound like a bad idea, Luke? I mean, you're a kid that lives here in Marion County. Does it sound like a bad idea when people from both sides come together to try to reach an equitable agreement or an equitable process to end this flag issue once and for all?
No, I think that'd be the professional, mature thing to do, but
Well, I think so too. But as this group formed, and by the way, this group formed and created a Facebook page. It's called Ocala United on Facebook. We started with 6 members last night at about 10 o'clock. Tell me what the total is now, Luke. I think it's like 230, 240 people, Ocala United. I think we got like 236 members, something like that now. Maybe even more than that. I don't know. Where are we at?
Looks like 236.
236. I thought that's where we were. So 236 members in less than 18 hours. Okay? And we're only getting more and more members as this word gets out. But as the page begin to grow, you begin to have people tell us things like, well, we'll never stand for a hate-mongering flag, and you people are just racist who are trying to hide it under the veil of heritage and everything. And then a guy told me that the Confederacy is a flag of hate and degradation, and that it's one that will forever show the hatred of whites in this country, and that the African-American community was belittled and beaten and killed and unjustly treated through slavery, and this flag represents that. And that's why this flag should never fly, because this flag is the representation of slavery and racism and lynchings, and it's just hate, hate, hate. There is no heritage to it. And when I saw that, I said, huh? So I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Well, he went on to tell me that his Northern heritage says that, he's offended by this flag. And this is a white guy, by the way. He's offended by this flag, and it's hate, hate, hate. And he went on to tell me how the South, through slavery and enslaving the blacks of this world, created this hate, and the Klan was in the South, and all of this is South, 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 hate, hate, hate. And I thought, well, obviously, this person has a problem with history. So after the break, I'm going to clear up all the problems with history. I'm going to tell people exactly why this is the right way to do it, through a united effort, and why history is good, history is bad, and history is ugly. You can't have one without the other. It's kind of like love and marriage. What did Frank Sinatra say? You can't have one without the other. History is good, history is bad, history is ugly. I'll explain that in the context of what it means for a flag next on the Voice of Ocala, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. We're live and local and united, the source. Welcome back to the Voice of Ocala on a Wednesday afternoon. I was telling you before the break about a group that I was approached about last night to join, and I joined, and I'm proud to say that I'm one of the people that is in on some of the decision making for this group. It's now over 230 people strong. It's called Ocala United. It's a group that was put together from people that are part of the Pride Ride for the heritage, not hate, of the Confederate flag. It's also comprised of people who think the Confederate flag shouldn't be displayed on county property and have some issues with the meaning of the Confederate flag, the racist meaning that has become attached to the Confederate flag because of, well, quite frankly, what the Klan did with the Confederate flag and the battle flag of the Northern Virginia Army in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s under Jim Crow law. We can't argue that. It was used as a symbol of race and hate by a group of wackos. Okay? Remember, though, the Klan is, while all people want to say the Klan is a Southern thing, it was created in Indiana. Last time I checked, Indiana was a northern state, but that gets me a little off topic. So I was attacked earlier today saying that my opinions didn't matter and that I was draconian and that I was racist because I made a point to say the Confederate flag should be put up at a park here in town where there's a wall and everything to the Confederate soldiers that lost their lives in the war between the states. And someone told me their Northern heritage says the flag of the Confederacy is a racist, hate-mongering flag that does nothing but breed hate, and that it should never fly because his Northern upbringing taught him that the flag was terrible. Well, let me teach you a little bit about flags, pal. I'm not going to tell you who your name is, so you probably don't care about my opinion, but everybody listening out there that is part of this group, Ocala United, you know who it is. So we'll just go with this. Let's start with slavery. Slavery wasn't a North American thing, by the way, like American colonies thing, the way you think it is. Slavery first started by Dutch ships buying slaves, buying tribes of Afrikaans from other tribal leaders of Afrikaans who had won in fights and wars that they had had on the continent of Africa. And then they sold them into the slave trade. The Dutch used them in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Santo Domingo, all that area for sugar cane and those kind of crops. And then they were brought, most of the slaves brought here. I'll give you the exact thing. The origins of slavery in the colonial U.S. Are complex. There are several theories that have been proposed to explain the trade. It was largely tied to Europeans' colonies' need for labor, especially plantation agricultural labor in their Caribbean sugar colonies operated by Great Britain, France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic. Most slaves who were brought to the 13 British colonies, which later became the eastern seaboard of the United States, as we all know, were imported from the Caribbean, not directly from Africa, as some people like to say. Although slavery, they arrived in Caribbean predominantly as a result of the Atlantic slave trade. Although slavery of indigenous peoples also occurred to North American colonies, by comparison of scale, it was minute. Slave status for Africans usually became hereditary, and that was the hereditary slaves are most of the slaves that were born into slavery in the Caribbean nations. They weren't brought here on slave ships straight from Africa. That's one fallacy people want to think. That comes straight from Carl Eckberg, who wrote a book about the roots of slavery. Also, the French introduced legalized slavery into their colonies in New France near the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River. After the Port of Orleans to the south was founded, more African slaves were imported to the Illinois country for use as agricultural and mining laborers. Illinois. I don't remember the Illinois seceding from the United States as part of the Confederacy, but by the mid-18th century, Slaves accounted for as many as a third of the population in the Illinois country. This, again, according to Carl J. Eckberg, this is a book he wrote called The French Roots in Illinois Country from the University of Illinois Free Press. Slaves, African and indigenous, were a smaller part of the New England economy and a smaller fraction of the population, but they were present in New England. This, according to the Origins of Slavery, 1997, that's page 94 and 95. The first Africans brought to English North America did, of course, land in Virginia. These individuals appeared to have been treated as indentured servants. A significant number of enslaved Africans even won their freedom through fulfilling a work contract. Some successful free people of color, such as Anthony Johnson, acquired slaves of their own. This, according to Edmund S. Morgan's American Slavery, American Freedom, the Ordeal of Colonial Virginia. This is on page 154 through 157. Until the Revolutionary era, almost no white American colonists were against slavery. Even the Quakers generally tolerated slaveholding until the mid-18th century, although they did emerge as a vocal opponent of slavery after the Revolutionary era. Slavery was officially sanctioned in Philadelphia at a yearly meeting every year. Following the Revolution, the northern states did all abolish slavery, New Jersey acting last, and by 1808, all states except South Carolina had banned the buying or selling of slaves. Internationally, President Jefferson denounced international trade as a violation of human rights. In 1807, Congress banned the international slave trade. However, the domestic slave trade was deemed an endeavor that couldn't be halted for the sake of trade for the new country. This, according to Dumas Malone, Jefferson and the president's second term. Compromise always created free and slave states because of the representation in Congress. Slavery is an atrocity shared by history of all Americans, not just Southern Americans. Remember, the northern founding fathers wanted 3/5 of a human because of population counts, not the southern founding fathers. So for someone to say that the Confederate flag is a flag of hate, so far all the atrocities I've talked about were not under the Confederacy. Wait, but there's more. The Seminole Wars of Florida fought under this flag, almost single-handedly wiped out a Native American nation that was well-educated and well-equipped to handle life as citizens of Florida. How about the Cherokee, the Shawnee, the Iroquois, and let's not forget about Manifest Destiny. Entire tribes of Native Americans were wiped out from their lands by the U.S. Cavalry, which, by the way, had both whites and blacks in their ranks as cavalrymen. Again, all of these atrocities not done under the Confederate flag. You know what flag they were done under, Luke? Could you garner a guess what flag all of these atrocities occurred under?
Oh, I'm thinking maybe the American flag.
See, look at there. The American flag. You want to talk about a flag of hate. You want to talk about a flag of atrocity. You want to talk about a flag that keeps people down, that almost wiped out entire civilizations of Native Americans. Before you start saying the Confederate flag is hate and hate mongering, think about what the American flag has done. Yet we fly the American flag. You know why, Luke?
Why's that?
Because it's the greatest country on the face of the earth. With the good comes the bad and the ugly. The American flag represents all that is great in the world. Freedom of its people to succeed. Freedom of its people to make a place in the world. Freedom of its people, if they don't like their government, they can vote it out. But with the Confederate flag, all anybody wants to talk about is hate, hate, hate. Well, history can't have it all one way. You can't say my northern teachings have taught me that the Confederate flag is evil. There is evil underlying every flag on the face of this earth. There is evil that is everywhere. Okay, if there was evil in the Garden of Eden, and I'm pretty sure, Luke, the scripture teaches us evil was in the Garden of Eden. Am I correct?
You're right.
If there was evil in the most abundant, beautiful, and built by God place on the face of the earth, the Garden of Eden, then evil is everywhere, under every flag. So for you to make your argument, we can't have this flag flown somewhere because of the evilness of what happened under it, remember, every person of Cherokee descent, Seminole descent, Iroquois descent, Shawnee, Sioux, all the Western civilizations of Native Americans. They were killed and eradicated by the U.S. cavalry because of manifest destiny. It's our right as Americans to move from coast to coast. They were killed not by white men, not by black men, but by Americans under the American flag. So this group, Ocala United, has come together to try to figure out a way to bring people together and teach them the proper history. We're going to face haters. That's why I gave you this little history lesson today, because that's facing down a hater who immediately said, well, you're just from South Georgia and you're a racist. So I had to explain to him by the way, my best friend ever in my life who passed away from a burst aorta because of his high blood pressure problems. Last time I checked, Mama Rosemary, who I still call Mama Rosemary to this day, and Gunny Burt, who was his father, both of African descent. Mama Rosemary traced her family tree back to slavery. He was my best friend. So if you want to call me a racist, you're barking up the wrong tree. I'm just a realist, and we all have to live together and get along together. And we're trying as a group to figure out a way to do this. And it's going to be a tough haul. We know it. But it's one that we've decided we will endure. And we're going to make some changes. Like Buddy Martin said and Daniel Owen said, what are you going to do about it? Well, Ocala United, I think the group, this core group, we have some ideas, and I think that they're valuable ideas, and I think we're going to be able to affect change.